Welcome back. Today we are testing the Motiv Tank Rampage Pearl. If you like what we do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and check us out on Patreon. First impressions: with the constant barrage of urethane and urethane like balls in modern times, including now the PBA controversy, I feel like the Tank Rampage Pearl legitimately offers something different. All right, getting right into it. It's rare, in my opinion, that brands' marketing lingo really matches what we see, but I have to say, Motiv got this one spot on. I'll try to explain what they mean in a more nuanced way based on what I saw. We have another microcell polymer cover. This one, a pearl. They bring back the Gear V2 core from the original Rampage, which is a higher RG and lower diff from the Gear core and the Venom Shock. Motiv says with distinctive urethane motion. Fair. They described it as, quote, aggressive yet smooth. And this is absolutely true, and I want to explain that more. You see how it reacted very sharply in the friction in this test, and obviously I moved further in and ultimately, see the smooth urethane-like reaction. But the main characteristic here is that the ball seems to respond hard or aggressively to friction, and then has that smooth urethane reaction down lane. So as I move, I experiment to understand what this ball is about. As you can see, if I move in and don't use the heavy friction, it never really does anything, as is typical with urethane type reaction. So I need to get in, but still project it to the friction. However, it gets a little tricky finding the spot to play because of how hard it responds to the friction. So I'll find it where I throw a couple perfect shots, and then if I eke it to the friction of the foot early, it jumps. That hard response to friction is a unique characteristic. Most urethane responds or stops in friction, but not this hard. It's usually smoother. But that is what makes it unique, the Rampage Pro, and I think could be a really interesting piece on a more tapered or flatter shot as opposed to this heavily walled pattern. Additionally, Motiv says it resists lane shine, and I can also confirm that seems to be the case. It still looked pretty dull after about 10 games. Okay, so let's have a look at Tyler throwing the Tank Rampage Pro. A lot of what I said applies to Tyler as well because the Rampage Pro has a specific set of characteristics. This ball responds hard to early friction as Motiv advertises and has a smooth downlane shape. Trouble is, if you get into that friction early, it transitions hard and then you can't keep it right at the head pin. If you don't use any friction, it looks very smooth because it doesn't do much. But while Tyler can make it hook a bit more than a lower rev bowler like myself, even he can't quite get the thing going enough to roll well when not using the friction. So 1, you need friction. 2, it responds hard to friction. 3, it's smooth or slow down lane. And this made it hard on this walled up shot to get lined up. Tyler needed to set himself left to right with his feet first, figure out where to stand, and then find the right distance to hit that friction wall. So, where do you get out to 5 or 6? At 30 feet, at 35 feet, at 40 feet, whatever. Otherwise, it's just too hard or too soft off the friction. And it's an interesting ball reaction, but really, I would say too tricky for a walled house shot in our experience here. It may work way easier on a more tapered or flatter pattern, but you have to keep this in mind how the ball reacts so you choose it at the right time. The other thing I like so far, like I said, is that it does seem to resist lane shine, which keeps it reacting the same way you anticipate longer. All right, so finally, let's have a look at Brian throwing the Tank Rampage Pro. And you could see how fast this ball reacts to friction. We talked about it now, myself and Tyler. When you can see kind of the basics, we talked about earlier. But again, with that Microsoft polymer formula, it really responds aggressively to friction while maintaining that smoother downlane reaction. So far for Tyler and I, that aggressive response made it tricky to find a good line to the pocket that wasn't over-under. For Brian, the tide turns. Because of his roll and tilt, the ball responds a little slower and then more smoothly to the friction. That immediately meant the ball looked better for him on this walled house shot. I still don't think house shots and urethane reaction are a great match, especially how the pattern is affected. But this really looked pretty reasonable for Brian. Of course, if he doesn't get to the friction, he sees the same issue we have, which is that the ball does pretty much nothing. It just floats. But if he kind of tickles the friction or gets into the friction, he has a nice reaction. Of course, there are the obligatory 10-pin leaves here and there, but the shape looks good. Again, I feel like a tapered shot might make the Rampage Pearl look much better since there's no left to right wall of oil causing dramatically different ball reactions. Okay, final thoughts just to round this out. The Motiv Tank Rampage Pearl is a urethane-like shape which not only responds early but aggressively to friction. That means it has a quicker hook phase and then a longer roll. So in friction, it looks aggressive mid-lane and smooth down lane. In oil, it does pretty much what every urethane-like ball does, nothing. It does seem to resist lane shine. It'll offer something, I believe, more versatile than the Yellow Jacket, which is an even earlier, stronger overall motion, requiring more condition-specific environments. My initial thought is, neither ball is ideal for a walled-up shot, but likely better when the pattern is more tapered or flat. And I would say the Tank Rampage Pearl offers a unique shape in the urethane-like group. We will do a comparison video. Stay tuned for that, where we compare it to the Hammer Not Urethane, the purple urethane from Hammer, and the Storm IQ Tour 78U.